Hi, Sagittarius. Welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for March of 2020. For you, Sagittarius, we're going to be bringing news about Venus and Mars and Saturn. There's a Mercury retrograde period going on. You probably already know that. And a couple of new and full moons. And Julia, I think you're going to start us out with Venus.
Sure. Hey, Sagittarius. So Venus is going to be going into your sixth house on March 4th, and that's the house of work and routine. So if you do any work that is Venus related, like design or customer service or anything involved in the beauty or art industries, then this transit could really support your work. And this transit can also bring a work crush into your life despite what you do for a living. So just try to be professional about it. Then on March 19th, we're having the spring equinox, and that's when the sun leaves the very final degree of Pisces and enters into the first degrees of Aries. And this is generally a time of a whole new cycle starting, and it's going to correlate with your fifth house of amusements and games. It's also a house of self-expression, so a lot of this might have to do with finding new ways to express yourself in this ongoing cycle. Now, another important planet to talk about is Saturn, because on March 21st, Saturn's going to be entering Aquarius. And throughout the year, Saturn is going to be going back and forth between Aquarius and Capricorn. But it's a pretty major shift because Saturn usually spends over 2 years per sign. And wherever we have Saturn is where we face some of life's challenges. It's where we can experience frustrations and blockages. But it's not just there to make your life just throw a huge wet blanket over your life, even though it can feel like that sometimes, because Saturn can also be a transit which brings forth some manifestations that happen after some examination and hard work goes into it. So with entering your third house of communication, and again, that's on March 21st, Saturn might bring some frustrations and challenges to how we communicate, where, for the next couple of years, you might feel a lot more tongue-tied or a lot more sort of blocked in your ability to kind of express yourself verbally. And if you do any type of writing, it can also be a time where you have to kind of go through a period of writer's block as well. But in examining these areas of your life, after the transit is over and with a little bit of focus and hard work, you can actually really kind of concretize and in a lot of ways make your communication a lot more mature and a lot better of an expression of who you are. And then the final planet I'd like to talk about is Mars, which spends most of the month in your second house of possessions and money. Now, wherever we have Mars is where we are really, really driven because that's the planet of activity. So you could be spending a lot more energy trying to increase your money or to acquire new possessions during this transit. However, Mars can bring some conflict as well. So, watch out for having some fights over money too. Then on March 30th, Mars is going to enter your third house of communication. Saturn's going to be there as well. So, make sure that you're watching your words a little bit during this time because you don't want to say anything that you can't unsay because Mars tends to be a little bit impulsive and sometimes a bit combative as well. And what's going on that you're seeing this month, Jamie?
I think it's interesting, all that activity in the third house with Saturn and Mars, and I'm going to be speaking very shortly to Mercury moving in and out of that third house too. I think it's going to make especially the Sagittarius risers of the world, really curious and interested in ideas and just bring up a lot of communication themes. I want to talk about Mercury and I want to talk about the moons. So on March 4th, I'm just going to type this in. So on March 4th, Mercury is here at 29 of Aquarius. It moves out of the very beginning of Pisces, and you probably know that Mercury is retrograde right now, and that always tends to make things pretty messy. Messages get lost, machinery breaks down at your workplace, parts of the internet sometimes go down. This particular Mercury retrograde might be difficult because it's in Pisces, and that can create a very foggy feel around Mercury retrograde. But during the days when it retrogrades back into Aquarius, starting right here, around March 4th, I think that it's actually going to feel a little bit clearer. So, and then on the 9th, the best part happens, and that is, I really do need my glasses for this, and that is, there it was, and that is that Mercury, that's the day Mercury turns direct, so woohoo, finally Mercury retrograde is over. And hopefully we have cleaned up the communications that we were supposed to during that. But there's also a full moon in Virgo, which is going to, I think we called it coming out of the fog. There's going to be this feeling of clarity finally descending. And I think communication will get easier. And also there's going to be this mood of like, there's the mess that Mercury retrograde left. It's time to attack it and clean it up and organize it and get everything shipshape again. That's going to happen for you in your 10th house, which is the arena of career. So if there are messes in your career that have resulted from the miscommunications that Mercury retrograde has brought in those 3 weeks of Mercury retrograde, you might find that you have the urge to be more rigorous at your work, and as regards your reputation as well. So then, as the month goes on, there is a new moon on March 24th. And this one is a new moon in Aries, and you can just watch that little moon symbol travel around the wheel until it gets to the sun, meets up with the sun shortly after the equinox right there in the 5th house, which for you is Aries. Trying to get back there. And also you'll notice that Chiron is there with the sun and the moon in Aries. And so we've called this one springtime is for healing, because when the sun moves into Aries, that's springtime, right? That's the very definition of the spring equinox. It's Aries season. It's the time when there is a lot of new life springing forward, when there is a lot of rebirth, a lot of a new vitalization of energies happens in springtime. And so the first new moon of the year very much has that mood. I want to begin something. I want to be bold. I want to do something exciting. I want to leap in. I want to be spontaneous. But Chiron is there with the sun and the moon, and Chiron's themes are healing ones. Chiron, as the wounded healer, is all about taking things that have been split apart, broken, and putting them back together, sealing it over, creating something more whole. So this spring, perhaps there's something that you can do, an action that you can take. Perhaps there are words that you need to say that can restore wholeness. And another theme of Aries is anger, assertion, and really defending and protecting yourself. And when Chiron is in Aries, and it's, by the way, it's in Aries for 7 years, and we're in about year 2, entering really into year 3 of this, Chiron is reminding us that we may have defended or protected ourselves in the wrong way in the past, and that we still can fix that. So if you have dominated other people in an attempt to protect yourself, maybe it's time to, dial it back a little bit. If you have been passive aggressive, lobbed sideways blows at people that they didn't expect as a way of asserting yourself, maybe it's time to shift that. If you have not asserted yourself enough, not protected yourself enough, not taken care of yourself in that way, maybe it's time to dial it up. And you're really the only one who knows the truth of that. So I think that this springtime is a great time to engage in this mood of rebirth and newness, and particularly in your house of creativity, that could be really fun. This is a house of pleasure, of play, love affairs, light, fun relationships, and entertainment of all kinds. And so if you get the creative urge, this is a really great month for that. Well, Sagittarius, if you wanted a reading, I think look no further than a natal and transit reading because there's so much going on in so many different areas. That's the reading where you can ask the most questions, where you can look at a really broad field in the reading. And I think that's all we have for you. I hope you enjoyed it. We certainly enjoyed making it for you. And we'll see you next month and all around the cosmos. Bye.
Bye bye.